Welcome to the Sci-Fi Center, the place to be, where comic books and wrestling collide magically. Movies, TV shows, and pop culture we share. Get ready to rock, we're here to take you there. From superheroes to aliens in outer space, we've got the latest news and reviews in our embrace. Turn on your screen, let the neon lights glow. We'll take you back to the 80s. Let's rock and roll. Sci-Fi Center, where the legends come alive. Get ready to geek out, let your imagination fly. We're diving into the past with a touch of modern flair. Sci-Fi Center, the ultimate pop culture lair.
Welcome to the Sci-Fi Center Semi-Overnighter. Topic tonight will be dystopian movies. We'll get to that. But first, we are presented by Paramount Pictures, A Quiet Place Day 1 in theaters June 28th. For those of you lucky, loyal Las Vegans, some of you will be going to see that before anybody else next week. Once again, A Quiet Place Day 1 in theaters June 28th. Stay quiet, stay alive. If you'd like to support the center, support this channel, you can do so several different ways. Most of them are in the description. You can join the Patreon, or you can drop a super chat because we've been monetized now. Also, as of today, we were approved for memberships. If you look at the video, you'll see all the 3 tiers of membership that are there. And we'll be doing some stuff once we reach the threshold of members. We will start doing things that are members exclusive that allows you to do streams that are exclusively for members. It'll be a lot easier than the Patreon, but we'll use them both. We won't stop doing Patreon just because the memberships are now active. So yeah, add to the Comic Con fund so I can eat a burrito instead of mayonnaise sandwich. So I'm your host, William. Co-host is Brad. How are you doing?
Hey everybody, how's it going? Doing well?
Yep, and look, I think we got our first new member. Look at that. That's
Rhea.
Our first super chat is our first member. Thank you for the continued support. Been heartbeat.
Yeah. What other firsts is she going to be for us? You can be like our first, other than William, like on the ground, like Comic-Con correspondent or something.
Yeah, she might be. I think she might be gone. I don't know what her final status is, but yeah, let's see which. It doesn't show me which tier you joined, but I think it's geek. I think she's a King Geek, which is my logo with my crown on the Babe Ruth crown there. So, all right. So let's see what we got here. Clinton, this Jurassic King. I think this is the first time I have seen you here, unless I'm
first time I've seen him. First time I've seen him, definitely. Okay, first time I have.
Yeah. Welcome to the chat.
Welcome up, man. And William is definitely looking forward to the TCU. Or am I mixing that up? That's the Poop Lunch Honey. Oh, okay. That was
Twisted Child universe.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
It's been called Poohverse Twisted Child. I think the technical term for it is Twisted Child Universe. Yeah, we will be definitely talking that when the time comes. We'll be interviewing the people again because they're moving into the next phase.
Definitely. How's it going, Clint? With Duck, of course. You can chat with whatever you want as long as you don't harass other chatters. But depending on the topic may want to discuss, yes. Don't harass anybody in the chat, please. Who's going to be? Well, it was Rhea. So let's see. What else you guys got for us here? Most of the membership, yes, it does. That's right. How's it going, Aaron? who also mentions Happy Juneteenth for everybody. Although for a lot of
For
the
about
world
a-
now,
yeah.
for most of the world now, it's June 20th. But still important day.
Yeah, about 7 more minutes left. Should be a fucking paid national holiday for everybody, but it's not. That sucks. So well.
Let's see. Azteca says, Blade, don't drink any trash Starbucks. I'm not even sure whether you're getting at there, Azteca, but okay. It's just kind of a Blade thing, carrying over that from conversation.
Hey, Wesley Snipes is getting his other 15 minutes of fame out of all this, so there you go.
Again, he might have 15 more coming up in a couple weeks here. We'll have to wait and see.
I think he's got like a minute. He's a cameo. I don't think any of these cameos are going to be.
I don't mean literally 15 minutes, but I mean, but even you said, you think that it's
I think
like that rumor.
I think everybody's going to be in this thing because if they're alive and breathing, they'll be in this movie because it's not. That's the gimmick. This is the thing about Deadpool movies that always has just never really connected me. It's a gimmick. That's all all these movies are gimmicks, and now it's the ultimate gimmick. And it's like, yeah. So yeah, he'll definitely be in there because he's alive and on Earth and available. Mm-hmm. So I think any of these guys that have ever done any Marvel movie, there's a good likelihood that you're going to see them all in there. And I'm all right with that as long as it's the last time I ever see them. Because once again, don't drag your old luggage into this new house. I want to see something new. I want to see something innovative. I don't want to see recycled stuff. I don't want to see retreaded stuff. I enjoyed it when it was new. Now give me something new to enjoy. So everybody get this cameo shit out of your system all the way up to Secret Wars. And at that point, say goodbye.
Aaron says, sorry, Juneteenth is not a paid holiday.
Dirty bastards.
But by the way, kind of related, well, not related to Deadpool, but I mean, something I just saw a minute ago on Twitter. I thought I'd go ahead and share. It's actually something Mr. Enosh from Point Extra Lounge. How's it going, man? If you're watching, he's definitely of the same mindset as William on something that was recently announced. Dear God, no, Josh Gad, stay away from this. There's no reason you should be anywhere in this project. And of course, being Spaceballs too. So.
Well, I think he likes Spaceballs. I have no use for one or two. I think he likes it. I think he just hates Josh Gad. I
don't mind him, honestly. He was on the Daily for a while, so that's kind of where I first came familiar with him.
I listen. When it comes to Spaceballs, that's just something. If it's on my TV, I turn it. If I'm, sometimes you have those movies that when you're watching something good and you just keep your TV or your channel where it is, and something just whatever pops up afterwards. A lot of times if I'm doing something, I will make an effort to turn off Spaceballs because I think it's silly. Yeah, I have all the respect in the world for May Brute, but like I said, I'm not into buffoonery, so it's not my market.
Yeah, watch you something good, eh?
Buffoonery, it's as good as in the eye of the beholder. Listen, if you're into buffoonery, if buffoonery is your thing, then that's your thing. It's just like if
I just totally broke a band topic there, guys. He knows. We all know what I'm getting at there. I just couldn't resist. How's it going, Droga? Let's see. I think this is a new guy too. Protos X. What's up? I was gonna check out Blade Runner tonight. Which version you recommend?
I always recommend everybody the international cut, especially if it's your first time. If it's your first time ever seeing it, the international cut's the best one for you.
Okay, and yeah, they're all told there are 7 versions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which one is the longest again? Is that the longest, or is that the kind of
the international cut? The international cut's the longest one because it adds everything. It's everything that he puts in there. Even concludes his director set, but it also includes the voiceover as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. Let's see. Clint says Juneteenth is a paid holiday for bankers, post office, and government employees. Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Is it?
Unless I missed something. It's as far as like being like a recognized holiday is relatively recent too in American history.
Yeah, it's like the last 10 years or something. And then they signed other laws and stuff. But
let's see, blame Brad, blame Droga. I don't think you're gonna get that hashtag going, man. They've already settled on this one.
No, they're not for me. I don't like buffoonery. I take my movies seriously. I mean, it's a preference. Not knocking you guys. If you're into buffoonery, if you're into slapstick, if you can sit through movies like Dumb and Dumber and get a laugh out, and more power to you. It's just not me. And since I'm 50% of the platform, it's kind of hard to have a buffoonery conversation with half of when I don't partake in those movies. It's the same thing.
Well,
It's just not my deal.
Well, and it's like it's like my feel. Excuse me. It's my feeling on it. It's actually I'm actually kind of at a point because the way I describe it a lot of times with like how my perspective on comedy has evolved is I'll say something like The Hangover. I use that as kind of my template when I say I really dug it when it came out. I don't know if I'd be that into it now. And Aaron, I also kind of recently had a little bit of a conversation on Twitter about Superbad, where I said, yeah, that really has not aged well. So I think because part of my perspective is it's like I and I don't hold it against like any filmmakers or comedians who partake in this, but again, comedy evolves. I mean, humor like evolves with the times as far as like what really kind of lands, and a lot like the kind of like the smut or the like really kind of gross out or like teen sex comedy or things like that. That those really those I feel like I've kind of moved past. So in a lot of ways, I feel like buffoonery when it comes to comedies are really that's the kind of sort of like maintains sort of like the most longevity in the sense that it's like because it's slapstick. It's like you're going to be either into it or you're not, and that's it's perfectly fine either way. But it's like I mean, it's also you can look at it through the prism of like Looney Tunes or something like that. That's kind of how I tend to look at it. If I'm with something like Liar Liar, Ace Ventura, or even Do Where's My Car, even though I fully acknowledge Do Where's My Car is stupid as hell.
All the movies you just mentioned are literally in the same vomit-worthy spectrum of the movie. I mean, I would literally rather dine on my own vomit than watch Ace Ventura ever again. But that's just a preference.
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Azteca. And Brad is turning into Tommy Jones. Wait, no, I'm not. No, it's William who's like, I can't say your buffoonery. He's the one who's like not a fan of buffoonery.
Wait. Yeah. Some people are, some people aren't. I'm skipping Deadpool for the first time since it's under Disney. I don't know if I think it's gonna be just as vulgar, but yeah, you will see the Disney effect because it's their movie now. So,
and
I don't think it can get any worse.
Thank you, Rhea. You gifted 5.
Oh, cool! Thank you. That's right. I forgot you could do that. Thank you, Rhea.
That's but yeah, going back to Deadpool and the Disney again, it's like I'm not expecting like I mean, it's definitely not going to be like a family comedy kind of thing. I do get the sense they're very much, especially with like the trailer and like that the theater ad with them swearing at people with cell phones. They are definitely really going for the this is going to be our first R. So that in that aspect's like I think probably
which I don't, like I said, I know it's going to make a lot of money, but it's going to be one of the first, if not the first, movies that is not one of those. Hey, let's take the family out. I mean, depending on what kind of family and what kind of what kind of things that you're down for as far as what you take your family to, but it'll still make a lot of money because a lot of it more adults. The proportionate amount of adults that will go see it, that would not go see it, that'll be more watchable amongst them. But yeah, Daredevil's a pretty vulgar character, man. It's like
Deadpool, not Daredevil.
Deadpool, man.
Yeah, you keep making that mistake.
One of them is watchable, the other one is not for me. But yeah,
well, and I remember like, well, and the first two, I mean, I do remember seeing like parents like bringing kids in. Some of them were in strollers, so I mean, I think probably. And if they're in strollers, I mean, this is not going to be like something they have like long term memory, but they had brought in like 5-6-year-olds into it. So, and again, I'm maybe like the only guy on the planet. Like my parents paid attention to the R ratings. I had to fight tooth and nail until I think I was about 14 when I finally just kind of got a carte blanche and whatever I wanted to, to put on. But for, as far as they were concerned, is like, when I was 7, like when William and I were both 7, he had seen Terminator, he had seen Aliens, he had seen RoboCop, he had seen Blade Runner, he had seen Friday the 13th, Halloween, all that. I had seen none of that at that age.
I remember when we demoed and we promoted Deadpool, I got a lot of complaints about it though. Both of them, I got a lot of complaints on that. Even though I explained to people this is a vulgar movie, but they it's a superhero movie, and I'm like, I showed you trailers, but I got a lot of people who are like, I took my kids, and a lot of the people I sent walked out. I'd say about 30% of the people that we sent the first time they walked out of it because it wasn't what they were expecting. So now they know. I mean, obviously he's been around long enough to where it's pretty much. But like I said, I never thought we would see, nor did I ever think we should have seen Deadpool mixed with it, intermingle with the MCU. It was cultivated by Fox. That's where it had all of its, when Fox was on its own, had all of its freedom to do it, be as vulgar, whatever it want to, without really crossing over into the established successful framework of what the MCU, already was. But they went ahead and did it. So it's going to be interesting to see, where they draw lines as far as vulgarity and, some of the things that happen in Deadpool. Are the people who like the Fox movies going to be like, oh, you watered down my Deadpool? And then are the people who have gone along with the MCU of this successful formula going to look at this movie like, what the fuck is this type of deal? All the while, it'll make all of its money, but I'm wondering what the actual reactions are after the money is spent. Because I think a lot of its money is going to be front loaded. I think it could possibly reach $1 billion, but I don't know if it's going to be real watchable dollars. I think it's going to be upfront. A lot of people in mass going to see it, and then deciding afterwards. But I think it's going to. I'm guessing its final run, depending on how long it stays in the box office, could be anywhere between 980 to an even $1 billion. But. Right. But I don't know what percentage of those people are going to be like, wow, what the fuck did I just watch? Because if you're coming through and you've avoided, there's a lot of people. I know a lot of people who watch the MCU movies who have avoided the Deadpool movies because it wasn't the tone for them or their family. So now the two things are coming together. So it's going to be interesting to see if those people are going to be down for it. I'm only going for TBA. That's about it.
Well, on that note, why don't we go ahead and dive into the topic, of course, which is the dystopian genre, and I think probably a good way to kind of start that off is, draw the distinction, because they do tend to sort of get grouped together a lot. Draw the distinction between dystopian and post-apocalyptic, which those are different things. And I think, as William has explained, and this has certainly always been the way I've looked at it, is that dystopian, you're thinking about like a future where it's a future where like the status quo has gone south. Maybe have like an authoritarian government or things like that. Are also very highly technological in society, but post-apocalyptic, that society is falling apart. Now it's just chaos. That's it. So it's the difference kind of between Blade Runner versus Mad Max. Is the kind of the distinction you would draw between dystopian versus post-apocalyptic. But and I think William probably also add to that.
Well, Planet of the Apes would be the primary example. Something happened. There was an event that affected mankind all pretty much at once, or with disease, anything else like that. The Stand is post-apocalyptic because the Captain Trips was the apocalyptic event. Nuclear war on the beach, things like that, where there was an apocalyptic event or apocalyptic war, a series of events that caused that was the catalyst for the society that you're in. So the difference between, and I'll bring up probably the oldest, one of the oldest examples of dystopia would be 1984, George Orwell's 1984. Mm-hmm. There are different formats of it. To the right, you see the movie that was released in 1984. I watch that on a regular basis. One of the better movies made during that era. Although there is the society Oceania, which is the main setting in Eurasia and all that, they gradually, even though they are at war, the war is pretty much fictional. What 1984 is how basically what George Orwell was seeing back in 1948. George Orwell was in Britain, and he had just lived World War II. He basically looked around him, and he saw this as the future. He saw the Iron Curtain coming. He saw totalitarianism coming and as a regard, because Stalin, he was right in the thick of Stalin's era. He saw what Hitler did. He saw what Franco did in Spain. He was seeing all these despots and all these leaders and how they did it, how they became culted personalities. So there, even though there was he was watching a world war, his society didn't necessarily need a catalyst to happen other than the people who gained control of the society, Big Brother, things like that, created propaganda to the point where the people thought they were constantly at war. And while they thought they were under war, or that they were involved in a war, they gave their individuality to Big Brother willingly, even though Big Brother seems like it's this all powerful entity that is overseeing everything. When you read the book or you watch the movie, you'll realize that all those individuals are just as responsible for Big Brother than the party, which is the ruling party, is. So there's no event. It's just as society deteriorates, and the more that they trust the things that are happening around them, they trust the newspeak. They trust, in 1984, they control everything. The news, when something needs to be edited, Winston, who is the main character in here, his job is literally to edit facts and put in what Big Brother and the party want people to see. You're constantly being watched, and you're constantly being turned on each other. And the quality of life is despotic. It is, there's not enough food for anybody. They're constantly at war. The environment, everything has suffered, and that is what dystopia is. So 1984 is probably one of the earliest examples, whether it be in movies, because there is an older movie back in 1953 that they did. But I think if you ever get a chance to, and that's something we need to do for a watch party. If you ever get the chance to watch the 1984 version, the one that has John Burton and Richard Burton's very last role, he plays O'Brien. The dialogue. If I don't do a lot of reading anymore, The Stand turned me off of a lot of that. I delved back into the Game of Thrones stuff. But for the most part, the only book that I reread on a regular basis, and even if it's certain parts of it, is George Orwell's 1984, because there are quotes in there that last forever. When O'Brien is talking, there's some quotes that he gives Winston throughout the thing, and he's like, I forgot what. If you want to imagine the future, Winston, think of a boot stamping on a human face forever. I actually have that above one of our entry doors at the center. I just love that quote. And then there's also something he says. Spoiler alert! It's been around for 7 years. When O'Brien is actually acting like he's one of Winston's friends, even though he's at the end, you see he's part of the party. And there's a quote where he says, "We will meet in a place where there is no darkness." And what he's talking about is this room 101, which is this big, bright torture room that is just they break you down into loving Big Brother. So it's all, and they even have an enemy. Their enemy is a fictional character called Goldstein. And the reason why it's Goldstein, and it's clearly a Jewish name, he did that on purpose because of what was going on in World. Not only just what Hitler was doing in World War II, Stalin wasn't a friend too. I mean, Stalin killed a lot. He didn't have death camps, everything else, but he was the environment in Europe where George Orwell was, this point of view was coming from, was not a favorite place. And what he was doing is he was reminding people that we could basically shape these people into whatever we want to and make you hate them just based on what we tell you, and you'll believe it. Goldstein didn't exist. Now, Brian, one of the biggest revelations of the book is there is no Goldstein. There is no war. You just needed to attach yourself to that for us, for you to be able to trust us, and you willingly did it. And now you can't take it back. So that's for me when I think of dystopia. Obviously, I go to Blade Runner as default because it's my favorite series of movies. But long before Blade Runner, there was a 1984. Now another one that you might not just, and I'll get to your guys' examples too. I'm just going to give you a couple of mine that are. It's not as gloomy necessarily from the outset, but it all depends on the point of view that you're living. And that is going to be, and I'll bring it up right here, that is going to be Fritz Lang's Metropolis. When you look at Metropolis, it's a beautiful city. It looks like a vibrant city when you watch it, especially the Giorgio Moroder version, by the way. That's really the only one you need to watch. It's beautiful, right? It's this big, exploding city, a lot of industry, a lot of everything's going on the surface. But the majority of the people that are living down on the ground are living in horrid conditions. Their lives don't mean anything. They're all poor. They're all starving. They're all, they're all just fodder for the people who are the rich people that live at the top. And what that movie is about is one of the major industrialists, his son goes down to the bottom to explore this world and ends up falling in love. But it's this overbuilt, hyper-structured, brooding, imposing city, metropolis, that has become bigger than the people that live in it, and it's worth more than the people. The people down below only exist to keep that infrastructure going. And so that's another form of dystopia. So those are my two primary examples. I know you guys got some. Brad, do you have any that come to mind?
Yeah, probably watch you. One of the ones that really jumped to mind for me. This also kind of highlights how dystopian doesn't necessarily mean dark tonally. One big one for me is Demolition Man, because that is a with the kind of the society you see kind of a form out of in San Angeles and 30 years from in or we're getting pretty close to that timeline it takes place in now, but the society that's formed again, it's an authoritarian society, but also it's one that that's sort of predicated on as anybody's seen the movie, that's predicated on political correctness and a very touchy-feely kind of culture. I mean, the cops they don't carry guns anymore, as one of them says. It's like, we're cops, we aren't trained to handle this kind of violence. So the idea that is it's almost like a parody in some aspects of like a dystopian society, but it's also an example of one, because you see the society has in some aspects regressed, but also in other aspects it's progressed, and of course very technologically advanced, and again society has been subjugated in certain ways, but it takes a more lighthearted sort of approach to it, but it also does it in in a way that really that makes it unique and really makes it stand out. So Demolition Man was probably one of my go-to examples. I also would definitely another one I would say, and somebody, I forget who was asked in the chat, like the delineation between dystopian and cyberpunk. They're kind of they're on the same wavelength. The one I really also go to has been a favorite of mine in the last few years is Lead a Battle Angel, because that also again with a society that's kind of a you're dealing with the society below and the city Zalem on top, and this culture of humans and cyborgs coexisting, and they're this mysterious kind of a figure, and Alita's the characters really kind of at the center of it all, really trying to lead society towards the metropolis above them that is Zalem. So Alita Battle Angel, I've become a big fan of it since the movie came out, and that's another one I would cite as kind of a really go-to example for me of dystopian movie.
Okay, now there is a distinct difference. Cyberpunk can be dystopic, but it's not one and the same. So the difference between cyberpunk being dystopia is Blade Runner. But cyberpunk is technology based on where society is, as far as the type of atmosphere where the technology has taken them. It can be dystopic, like obviously Blade Runner. But there are other movies where you're in the future and you're using those cyberpunk aspects that are not necessarily dystopia. They can be living in societies that are not oppressed or depressed and still have that cyberpunk technology. Cyberpunk in itself is not necessarily dystopia. Cyberpunk with the circumstances of like a Blade Runner or something like that, or a Metropolis, then that's dystopic. So there you go, or dystopic. Just wanted to clarify that.
But I think let's see if anybody's got any examples in the chat. And by the way, Vince had a comment here I'm sure you're gonna love before we get to these. None of us do. Nobody, even the people who made Draw, don't understand Draw. It's just the Sci-Fi Center. It's just our lingo.
We literally have a shirt. The shirt says it means whatever you want it to do. I guess I don't know. I think it was Train. It was Meat Train, and when we were doing Meat Train, and I think Fourth misspelled Train. He didn't finish typing it, and he wasn't able to. He took it off, but I still read it because it was still popping up on my screen. I think that's where it originated.
Rhea asks, "Is the Fifth Element cyberpunk?" I thought it was. Oh yeah, is it cyberpunk or is it dystopic? I think it definitely falls into cyberpunk.
I would say more cyberpunk than dystopic, because it's not. I mean, it's not. There's no circumstances in which there's like hopelessness type of situation. It's the movie is overlaid over cyberpunk. I would say this is my opinion. I would say more cyberpunk than anything.
I got you. I'm trying to think, like, what are some other good examples? Because like, if you guys have any, share in the comments. But another interesting angle I've kind of always thought of is that when you look at the Mad Max series, I mean, Mad Max obviously, kind of epitomizes what we think of as post-apocalyptic, except the first movie. The first movie, society has not fallen yet.
It hasn't completely collapsed yet. Yeah.
We still have a police force. We still have, we still have kind of the operations of day-to-day life, but it's hanging by a thread. So I kind of always looked at it as like Mad Max, like it starts dystopic and becomes a post-apocalyptic.
What was the event? What was the event that caused their environment to be that way?
In Mad Max? Yeah, well, it's a combination of like nuclear war and fuel shortage.
Okay, so that is post-apocalyptic because the nuclear war was the catalyst of that was the event. So, I mean, you could look at the outback of Mad Max and you could say dystopia, but that's definitely post-apocalyptic. So there are dystopias that are not set along, but Mad Max would be I would be for like our Six String Samurai, a movie like that. That's another movie I know that most of you guys have never seen, but it's a really, really, really good movie. You probably have never heard. If you've heard of Six String Samurai, say so in the chat because I want to know I'm not alone. That's a really good movie. That is post-apocalyptic. Tank Girls, post-apocalyptic, and it's dystopia at the same time, but it's definitely post-apocalyptic. So if we were just speaking straight up dystopia, I wouldn't necessarily include if it was just I wouldn't include some of those movies simply because it wasn't the apocalyptic event is literally in the name. Some people say that somebody told me the other day, well, Blade Runner, because of the blackout, is post-apocalyptic. Yeah, no, because before that they were already a dystopian society. That event wasn't that event wasn't what set them going. It affected them. Star Trek technically is a post-apocalyptic, even though they've moved beyond that into a utopian society. Remember, it was World War III in the breaking up of the Earth and the four quarters and rulers like Khan that led to we saw First Contact, things like that. So that was a war that caused that. We literally had to wipe out a good quarter of the population. So Star Trek is. But yeah, what do you guys got?
We got some examples. People say Aliens is dystopic. I think I could see an argument for Aliens being dystopic, like the Alien franchise. Particularly Aliens, because they also tend to deal with. We talk about dystopian fiction. It also tends to deal with things like corporations. Like corporations with nefarious intentions, and illicit scientific research. And of course, you see that with what Weyland-Yutani wants to do with the xenomorphs. So yeah, I think I definitely see it with Aliens.
The only thing about that for me, that's a good one, but the only thing that for me that would keep me from calling it that way is I don't know what the overall environment is. Like I know what's going on with Weyland-Yutani, and I know what's going on the specific ships and specific pockets of people, and maybe we'll find out more about this in Romulus. But I don't know where the society is. Because we could get back on Earth and they're living just like normal people.
And we've never been to Earth in the whole franchise other than AVP. And a lot of people kind of headcanon that out.
And I'm one of them. So it's really, now if I see the world and it's looking like Blade Runner and it's looking like even without the alien, then yeah, we're talking about a dystopian. Or if they ever announce in the event that, hey, we had a world war and this is what caused it. But we could get to Earth and it'd be just a normal futuristic city. And as a matter of fact, we did see Earth. We saw Earth or enough of it, or
out
a
of
little
the
bit
window,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, and Aliens.
Again, it's there. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but it's there.
They're gonna retcon the shit out of that. But if you look at Aliens, I mean, and when you look at her in the hospital and all that stuff, there doesn't seem to be anything dystopic about the world. Their situation is, so I guess you could call it that, but I would have to see like Earth War or something like that, where everything is just like all fucked up. But then again, the apocalyptic event would be the alien invasion, so that would be the event. So they would make it more apocalyptic.
And it's crazy because there have been multiple attempts in the franchise to actually bring the Alien franchise to Earth, but they've never managed to do it yet. So other than again like flashbacks or like quick little references to things or AVP, and so yeah, but never had like one like properly set on Earth. So yeah, we'll see if they have Romulus kind of has anything along those lines. See, Vince says Idiocracy is dystopic and almost a documentary at this point. Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. Yeah. You also, Equilibrium is a good one. I love Equilibrium. That was actually the first thing I saw Christian Bale in before he was Batman.
12 Monkeys is an excellent movie. Where do I put that though? Because there's an event. I still to this day can't believe that Terry Gilliam made that movie. Just, I mean, if you say Terry Gilliam, I'm thinking Monty Python's or some shit. I'm not thinking this. This is one of the best movies of the decade. So this is post-apocalyptic. Because remember, it was a virus that caused the society to be what it is. So it's dystopic, but it's like, I guess you kind of see where the lines are blur. Because without that catalyst, without that apocalyptic catalyst, which was the disease, is it dystopian? Whereas it can be dystopian without the catalyst. Like, what created the Blade Runner situation? It's just our constant overall fucking up the planet to where we can't even live on it anymore. We have to be living off world. But without the disease or without the bomb or the war in some of these situations, where would this society be? So that's why, by definition, it's post-apocalyptic versus just dystopian right now. Whereas 1984, there's no, everything that is holding their society down was manufactured by the people who wanted power over time. So it's an interesting, not even a right or wrong thing. It's more of an interesting. What would it be considered, like, category wise?
Yeah, Equilibrium, I think, actually is a fantastic example, because those of you who haven't seen it, as I mentioned, it's this is the first thing I saw Christian Bale in. It's like probably like a year or two before he was Batman. But Equilibrium, it actually has it's been likened to 1984 a lot. And what Equilibrium is, it's a society where basically governments have decided, okay, we humans, we keep going to war with each other because we have the capacity for emotions, and so that makes us volatile and prone to conflict. So we have to suppress all emotions. So in Equilibrium, it's a futuristic society where people take medication, to cut off their emotions, and feeling emotions and anything that can precipitate any kind of emotional reaction or emotional feelings it's been outlawed. So, and Christian Bale, he's a cop for this, they're called the Grammaton Cleric in Equilibrium, and they're the enforcers. That they wipe out everything. They wipe out all art. They wipe out all anything that can make people feel emotions at all. As far as even like killing dogs. I mean, there's a part in it where he's ordered to, he has a puppy in his hands, and what happens with him is that he misses a dosage of the medication, so he starts experiencing feelings for the first time in his life, and so he's starting to have second thoughts about society and all the dogma he's been fed about emotions are inherently are something that we have to suppress or we're going to destroy ourselves. And there's a partner where he's holding a puppy, and he's told he has to kill the dog, and he says, wait a minute, let me take it. He's trying to cover up and says, let me take it, because we got to make sure it's not carrying diseases. We have to find out there's more of them, and so he saves the dog that way. It's pretty cool idea. But Equilibrium, if you haven't seen it, I really like it. And it's also really unique because they do something really cool. That they have this thing called gun kata in it, which basically what it is the law enforcement of the time, they've actually created a martial art out of gunfighting. And what it is the idea. It's the idea.
You know what? You motherfucker. You're about to drag me into a Raid reference, aren't you?
No, this came out 10 years before the Raid.
You're about to drag me into a Raid, or I feel some John Wick coming on, because gun kata sounds an awful lot like gun fu. Go ahead.
Well, I have something dystopian. I'm going to share it a little bit here, but that is martial arts, maybe like Raid-esque, but this isn't it. I'll get that in a minute, but gun kata. So the idea behind gun kata is that they've done all this research on gunfighting, and the idea is that, okay, we can like kind of predict the trajectory of gunfire. So the idea is that, okay, now if we can do that, we can actually create a fighting style out of gunfighting. So that's what gun kata is, and so it's a really unique kind of approach to gunplay they have. And I mean, they literally will have like Bale like holding guns, like this, or you'll end a fight, with guns posed like that. It's really, if you haven't seen Equilibrium, it's really kind of a unique approach to gunplay, and
Got the
and
shaft.
also
It got the shaft because of the Matrix stuff. So
yeah, well, that's so weird too, because it got likened to the Matrix. It's got nothing in common with the Matrix, so other than they both take place in the future.
It's just like in Dark City. Dark City. There's another one we could probably put into Dystopian.
Yeah,
The one of the worst trailers of all time, but for such a beautiful movie. I'm glad we got to watch that a couple of weeks ago. Also, another one that I left out, The Matrix. The Matrix is right up there, because even though the society you don't necessarily see, and the Matrix isn't dystopic, it is. You know what they're inside of. You know why it's there now, and even with all the history of it, you could possibly call that a post-apocalyptic movie, but I don't think it was, because the event was brought on gradually, and they did it. It was them destroying the world to get one up on the robots over time. So you can that's one that kind of straddles itself.
Yeah.
Between
Well, yeah, because I think you make an argument, that Matrix is the rare example. You could call it both dystopic and post-apocalyptic. And the thing about it is too, is like I thought more about the Matrix a lot, and I've said, especially if you've seen the Animatrix, the thesis that the franchise really posits is that mankind really is to blame for our own downfall. And I mean, it's like, because the machines are like, the idea of the Matrix is that we've been subjugated. Or really, when you think about it, like when they pull back the curtain and show like how we basically instigated every conflict of the machines, it's almost like the Matrix is almost like an act of mercy for them, because they don't need the Matrix, to harvest energy from humans. It's almost like,
they do. Remember, they do.
What do you
because
mean?
What did we do? Yeah, remember the Animatrix? What was the one thing that we did? Because we thought it would, they were solar powered robots. They were solar powered beings. So we blocked off the sun, so they had no energy source. So they used us as batteries.
Well, no, I get that. What I'm saying is they could still use this as batteries without plugging us into the Matrix. The Matrix really is almost like they're being merciful. They're saying, okay, we can like mutually gain here. It's like we can harvest your energy, and we can create this video game world you can all live in as if nothing bad happened.
I think that was like when you keep cattle or something happy. You just want them happy so that you can still eat them. But like I said, once you watch the Animatrix and you see what they do, like that island that they nuked they fucked up their island. The robots just wanted to exist, and then they were beating them up. They were ripping off their shirt. I mean, they were doing all kinds of awful things to them. And then you're like, wow, we're pieces of shit.
Yeah,
sort of deserve.
The Matrix is really scolding humanity pretty heavily if you've seen the whole franchise. So it's like the idea of like of humanity having a savior in Neo. It's like we kind of needed somebody, but not because it's like we were deserving in the context of the Matrix. It's like we need somebody to like guide us back and like tell us to get our shit together, because we humans kind of suck in the Matrix franchise.
Yeah, and the robots did what they needed to do to survive. They were like, we can't survive without. We're solar powered individuals. The sun is as much life to us as it is, and you've destroyed it for both of us. So guess what? We're going to use you. But I love the Animatrix.
That's one of the best. And my favorite is the 2-part kind of look back on like how we created the machines, and then the machines rebelled, and they kind of they went off to the Middle East to kind of form their own nation, and they're like arriving at the UN, like having dignitaries like, hey, it's like we want to like we just like break bed with you guys, and humanity says no. It's like your economy's kicking ass and you're destroying ours, so it's like we're just gonna bomb you to hell. It's like okay, we're gonna fight back then. So
it definitely turned the mood. Turned the mood towards who you're rooting for.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've read. It's one of the very first books I read. Very first book report I ever did was on George Orwell's 1984, and I can, like I said, I love this book. There are passages in this book that I literally have printed out in places around my office. Because it is so vivid. It is so it's one of the first times where I read a book and I could describe it. I could see it in my head. I could see it. I could see the society. I could see the view screens. And when I saw, because I read it in 1982, I remember I was 8 years old, and me and my mom read it. My mom read it to me. We read it. We took turns reading passages of it. And then 2 years later, this movie comes out, and it was what they did in that movie was everything that I had imagined the book being. The view screens, the big crowd, hate. They had hate conventions for Goldstein. Every time they would show Goldstein's face on there, it was exactly how I imagined it. Because George Orwell, unlike Stephen King, I love you, man, but he took a few words to describe it, and he could describe it and put the vivid picture in your head within a paragraph, and you would have it. You would understand where you were. You understand. You understood how they could end up in this environment, because along the entire length of 1984, you're like, how could these people live like this? How could they be so stupid? And then he sets it up to where you completely, by the end of the book, hell, you're ready to love Big Brother, because that's what Winston is, and it shows you Winston as being against the system and being aware of the system. And by the end of the system, his last words are, "I love Big Brother." So it shows you how a society can become that. And it's not for us 40, 50 years later. It is science fiction because we are removed from World War II. We are removed from the Holocaust. We are removed from Franco's regime. Most of us are removed from Pol Pot in Cambodia, things like that. These are things that are just online for us or in a history book for us. George Orwell's in the thick of all of that. He was in the thick of the Chinese Civil War. He was in the thick of post-World War II occupation. He was in the thick of East Berlin, the Soviet bloc being set up. He saw World War II. He was living under the bomb. So for us, it was science fiction, but it's weird because this guy sat and basically projected. He looked at what he basically did a Winston Churchill. He looked around him and said, "This is where we're headed as a society." And a lot of people say it was supposed to be a warning, not a handbook. But a lot of the stuff that happened after he wrote this book ended up, if you look at it, the Iron Curtain. There wasn't an Iron Curtain per se yet until later on. The Soviet bloc countries, Czechoslovakia, all these things, what China would become. Because remember, when he was writing his book, China hadn't solidified yet. The Korean War, all these things, and they were all cult of personalities that he saw from 1948 just by looking at what the world had been through in two wars that he had lived through. So for us, it's science fiction, and that's what it did. The fact that for him, it's still science fiction for him as well, because it's fiction, but it's fiction based on what he's looking at. So when you take his fiction and you put it in, when I was reading it in 1982, 1984, and now over and over again in 2024, you look at it and you're like, dude, this is kind of scary. So that's what makes it so entertaining. But I think everybody should read that book at least once.
We actually had let me see if I can find it. Because this is something Vincent, with Equilibrium. It's something like the Raid song. Yeah. It's well, first of all, it came 10 years before the Raid.
I've seen. I'm just fucking with
that. Okay, good.
I just fucking read because once he started, the gung fu thing, I was like, okay, we're headed towards John Wick Raid territory. I just,
No, but that was a really unique thing it did with Gun Kata, because that was something you've seen. But now actually to mention the one this is the one I'm going to ask if you have seen this. Say in the comments, this is one I'm wondering anybody who's seen it other than me in the comments, and actually Erin might have because she's also a Bollywood follower like I am. It's called Ganapath. Came out last year. It's with Mr. Tiger Shroff, and it's in a dystopian society where it's basically like all the rich live in live the high life in Mumbai, and everybody else is kind of stuck out in the desert. And this one guy who's part of this gang sort of gets kicked out of his gang, and he's taken in by these warriors living out in the desert, and it's looked at like he might be this kind of this prophesized sort of savior of the people called Ganapath. And it's very much a martial arts flick, so it's like you definitely see like the John Wick or Raid comparisons, and I absolutely freaking love it. I can't wait. It's like I got to see, I saw it in the theater close to me where it came out, because the owner there is from India, so he gets a lot of stuff from India there. So I was really happy.
Kind of cool, actually.
Say again?
That's kind of cool, actually. They make a connection with a guy.
Yeah. So, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to when they would put it on streaming or home media, because I freaking love the Ganapath. I'm big. Anybody's familiar with the Tiger Shroff, I'm a fan of that guy, definitely. And Ganapath's probably my favorite of his. And it got a lot of flack for like it doesn't exactly have the best CGI in it. But my thing is, listen, I wanted a dystopian like martial arts flick with him kicking ass and like rising to be the savior of his people. Did I get that? I got it in spades and got a pass, so I'm happy with that. So yeah, that's if you've seen it or familiar with it, please sound off in the comments because I'm curious if anybody else has. Or but if you're not, yeah, Google it, look it up because I think it's pretty awesome. But yeah, everybody's listing off some other ones here. There's actually another one I wanted to go ahead and mention here because this is also another one that's probably one of the best examples I could think of, and it falls into everything William was saying relating to like how eerily prophetic 1984 is, but also RoboCop. RoboCop definitely falls under dystopian fiction, and it definitely is like you look at it now and like look at kind of the way society has gone. It's like it's kind of scary how close how spot on RoboCop ended up being in terms of like how the future would. It's like it's almost like it's like it got everything right but the robots cops. So yeah, RoboCop I definitely would classify in the dystopian future.
That was a close one. That was a close one for me. That was a close one. I could see it. I did. That was a close one for me. I could probably straddle that one a little bit.
Cyberpunk?
But yeah, or Cyberpunk or just outright just neither. But still, it's close to being neither as it is to being both. It's just weird. So yeah, I could see it. I could see it. One I have that nobody's brought up yet. I don't see it in the chat. And this is a movie I've shown at the center a bunch of times. And I'll give you a clue. It has, the guy who said you get your hands off me, you stinking monkeys or stinking apes. He's in this one. So.
Planet of the Apes. Yeah.
No.
So Charlton Heston, obviously. So trying to think of
Soylent Green, baby. It's people. Soylent Green. It's people. Wow. Well, that was your idea of a twist back in the 70s. That was your M. Night Shyamalan moment.
Oh, really?
Soylent Green is a really messed up movie, man. It is. I mean, it is dystopian because no one event brings it about, but it's just a collapse of society because of overpopulation, a lack of food, things like that. You could say that was the event, but like I said, this happened over time, just like what we all go through now with global warming, all the stuff that we hear about now that we're hearing about. These are things that were being written into these books and written into this movie. The movie is very. I mean, they pick people up with big landscape machines and toss them in and then take them. And, they have this program where you can just, euthanize yourself. And then once you do, you become food. It's a food product, an all encompassing food product that's made out of people. And hence it's helping with the overpopulation and the starvation at the same time. But it's a really jacked up movie. It's like, wow.
Yeah. I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, dude, you got to see it. It's well done, and it is just like you look at it, and then at the end of it is when you find out because he his friend basically doesn't want to live anymore, and he gives himself over to this. It's like a dream state that they just put you to sleep, and then he follows his friend's body to where this factory is, and that's what they make it. You see all these people that are going in, and he's like. Soylent Green, and he, they catch him and put him in there. So yeah, Soylent Green is one of the.
It's interesting you mentioned too. So it's really disturbing. It's really screwed up because I would also say the same about the original Planet of the Apes, and that was G in 60. I mean, now the rating system was obviously different in the 60s, but
how that was G is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
There's nudity in Planet of the Apes. There's half naked women, a very scantily clad woman.
There's humans who get shot and then stuffed through ape taxidermy.
He walks through there. He sees his people. He sees his fellow astronauts all stuffed. I'm like, that ain't G, man. I'm like,
yeah.
That ain't 1968 G, but
that's right. Like when I first saw that when I was 12, and it wasn't until I was like early 20s, maybe I just had Planet the original on one time, and I thought, there's some really disturbing thing. Again, the dude getting stuffed, the hunting, and there were terms that are used in Planet of the Apes, like things like emasculation that I was not familiar with at that age, and I didn't understand what they were saying. Okay, this is and lobotomy and things like that. This is the stuff they're talking about doing to him.
Yeah. And
that's yeah.
Yeah, like I said, what is back then, if you showed any kind of skin on TV or movies, you got a warning. You didn't get this is a G-rated movie. You could legit take your kids, general audience. So yeah, that G-rated with bullshit. But Rhea brings up Fahrenheit 451. Yeah, that's dystopia. That's tailor-made dystopia for 451. It was adapted. It was adapted from a Ray Bradbury book, one of the great science fiction authors of any era. Fahrenheit Martian Chronicles. If you ever get a chance to read that, that's one of them. But yeah, Fahrenheit 451 was a society when they're burning books, they're controlling. It's a lot like. I think he may have been influenced because Fahrenheit 451 was done after 1984, so I think he may have been influenced. But yeah, the erasure of books, the burning of books. Yeah, I've done that movie here in the same too. So
Okay, how's it going, Ruth?
Brave,
Dropping in for the
Brave New World. Also Brazil. Brazil's another one. That's a dystopian movie.
Fourth says Good Burger is a post-apocalyptic.
Next.
Well, what do you say? It's like it caused harm to society, so I guess it counts. Let's see what else we got. Aaron says, "Yeah, Hunger Games definitely. Yeah, definitely falls under dystopian." So, have you? I mentioned you, Aaron, because you again you mentioned you're also like me, a little bit steeped in Bollywood. Were you familiar with anything I was saying there about Ganapath or Tiger Shroud? Because I think you dig that one a lot. Let me know if you if you either seen it or if you're like you just look it up and like tell me your thoughts on it, because I really dug the shit out of it. And again, you'll probably see people saying the CGI was shit, and it's like, okay, the CGI was again wasn't the greatest, but it's like I didn't care with like what it served up for me. So I just want to get that out.
Logan runs a perfect one. Yeah, we got to kill you at 30. Phew, that sucks. And fine. It took how many of you guys dying for one guy to figure out? Wait a minute, this sucks. I'm gonna run.
Yeah. Aaron also says Logan's Run isn't. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting. First, I even argue Paradise Lost is dystopian, and we look at the name, and then also Lord of the Flies. That's interesting because when we think of dystopian, obviously we think of the future.
That's another. Because it doesn't have to be futuristic. Yeah, you're right. Animal Farm's another George Orwell one. Patrick Stewart played a pig.
Lord of the Flies. I first read that book when I think it was my freshman year of high school. And then I saw one of the movies. I rented that because read the book in high school. I thought I'd check it out, and yeah, again, that's another one. It's very. It's kids killing each other on this island because they have no supervision, they have no societal structure. So, it's showing. It's showing the idea behind Lord of the Flies is it's people, a group of people being removed from society and all the trappings of it, and they're just kind of left to fend for themselves, and and seeing like what can happen. And it can be, the idea is that it can go like one of two ways. Either you have like the very positive leader who tries to rally people to cooperate and work together and like really establish like a unity among them, or you have the other side of it where it's like, it could just turn into a complete just complete free for all, and just rules and civilized. The idea of being civilized just completely go out the window. So the idea of like how much we would really teeter if we're just removed from the rules of society we've established for ourselves. It's like that's kind of the thesis of Lord of the Flies. Side. No, that's more. I'd say it's post-apocalyptic.
Because there's a disease that causes all that. Without the disease, the society wouldn't have been affected. That's just my opinion. Time Cop, I don't think is dystopian. It's just futuristic. Yeah, Apocalypse Now, that's historical. That's more. That literally takes place in Vietnam. So I don't know. I guess it would all depend on your framing and the definition of a post-apocalyptic. But in the traditional sense, I think that it would just be contemporary and will be historic because it was literally taking place and things that were going, and the things that he was doing were real. There's no fiction or make believe to it. The things that he was doing, there were people in Vietnam that were court martials doing the same things he did. So
yeah, but what other good examples could we shoot of dystopia? Well, I would go back to Demolition Man, like I said, because again that takes a bit of a different approach because it's you don't see. Well, let me point out Idiocracy, but when we think of dystopian fiction, we tend to think of again something's gone horribly wrong with society, not to the level of like a post-apocalyptic event, but still, it's like we've there's an aspect something has happened. we've
Yeah, there's
regressed
an
or we've
event.
progressed.
There's an event.
Yeah, but Demolition Man is it's the rare example of like one that does it as a comedy because the society we've turned into, we have the swear machines, which is my favorite. I think my favorite scene.
Murder, death, kill. Murder, death,
Yeah,
kill.
no, I think my favorite, one of my favorite scenes in it is when Stallone, because he can't. Of course, we have the joke about the seashells. You don't know how replacing toilet paper. He has no idea how they work. So, and he's and you have the swear machines. They buzz. I have no idea. This is a question I've always wondered about Demolition Man. Has anybody in the Demolition Man future ever paid that fine? Because the cops clearly are not capable of enforcing it. Demolition Man. But so the machine buzzes and he's like, oh, wait a second. He goes up and just curses like a sailor into the machine and gets all this huge wad of paper. I was like, oh, problem solved. So I really dug that moment. Demolition Man.
Dread would be because it's after a war. It's the war that causes that situation to collapse in the society.
Yeah.
Collapse.
Well, would that be dystopian or post-apocalyptic? Because I think I could see it.
Well, depending on who you're writing, because if you look at if you look at Dread, what a lot of it's written from his point of view. It's Dread. The movie is follows along the comic book. Yeah, it's a nuclear war. There's a nuclear war that leads to that society, so it's post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, and also the unique thing about Judge Dredd the comics is that they've maintained, most comics and a lot of like serialized fiction, they maintain like a floating timeline, so the characters don't age. Judge Dredd doesn't do that. It's like from the time the comics began to now, he ages. So now he's like in his 70s in the comics, right now. So that's here's one William's gonna love. Before I bring that up, let me Aaron, okay, I'll shoot you the trailer, Aaron, because I think you would really dig On a Path. I'll shoot you that. But this is actually a very worthy question. I think you can make a case that yes, it is.
What are we talking about? The movie, or are we talking about the comic?
The comic, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
because there's no one event that causes the society. It's a gradual decay of the respect for the way heroes like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern do things, and what Magog and all those guys do. It's a gradual thing that eventually leads to that. Obviously beyond the end of Kingdom Come would be post-apocalyptic because you're talking about a nuclear weapon being dropped. But no, that's dystopia. That's dystopia because of the society collapsed on itself by its own means other than one singular event. So yeah, I would definitely put that.
Ooh, here's another good one. I think you could definitely say dystopian because because the Purge, for those not familiar, it's this group called the New Founding Fathers. It was like American society kind of went to a tailspin, and this group called the New Founding Fathers came about and sort of restored order. And one of the things they did, they instituted this this annual event called the Purge, which basically one night a year, they just say, okay, all police, firefighters, hospitals, everything, it's all gone, and all crime, legal, murder, up to include murder, everybody can have at it for that 12-hour period.
I would get the fuck out of this country for that night. I would be gone weeks before, and I would not be back until weeks after. You would not catch me anywhere.
Yeah. I love the Purge franchise because I think it really hit its stride with the second one, the one with Frank Grillo. Because the first one got a little bit of flock because people they liked the idea of it, but they kind of just kept it. It was like a home invasion. It didn't really. So with the idea with the second one is they took you out into the world, as the event, as the Purge is happening and people are just killing each other. So and that makes it's much scarier that way because a picture. Just imagine like being in that scenario, and this happens to this couple in the movie. Their car breaks down, so they're stuck outside. When the Purge, they can't get home in time, so the Purge goes, and they're left to fend for themselves. So just imagine how terrifying that would be. It's like you're stuck out here, you've no transportation, no protection, and anybody can do whatever they want right now. And it's also one thing too with Frank Grillo's character. He's on a revenge mission, and it was what happens is we find out his son was killed by a drunk driver, and the judge, he got off on a technicality, so he's using the Purge night. It kind of flips the idea of like, okay, maybe not everybody who's got a score to settle on the Purge night is a total psychopath, but So he's trying to get to this guy who killed his son. And what happens at the end is he gets there, he corners the guy, he's got the gun to his head, but he decides not to kill him. But they kind of play it as a twist. So he's in the house, he's swearing at this guy. He's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna blow your head off now." And then it cuts away, and then he walks out, and then they deal with there's a big twist where like some of the government guys show up and they start a gunfight with them, and then the guy comes out that he was going to kill and saves him. So you find out, okay, he decided not to go through with it. And I like the idea of that, but I would have liked to have seen, and they've never done this yet. Yeah, like with a flashback scene. I really wanted to see the moment to see him actually make the decision not to go through with his vendetta, because I can believe that he could like risk his life and just go through all this effort to get to this guy all night, and just how much that's destroying him inside this, that he's responsible for his son's death. But I just really would have loved to have seen and maybe they'll still do it, like show us that flashback we never saw, but just the idea like show us
and they're not good. They're not. I don't know how long we have.
Anarchy and Election Year, those are my favorites of the franchise, or the two with Frank Grillo, basically.
Yeah, I thought the first one was kind of cool, but then it's like, oh shit, how much more time do we have left in this stuff? How many times? I just feel that everyone after that is kind of losing a little bit for me, but that's just me. I never saw Star Trek be described as utopian. Not sure if it's in the context of life aboard the Enterprise or the value. It's utopian. The reason what makes it a utopian society is after the post-apocalyptic event that was the World War, it eliminated all. They united the entire world after that, and after they united the world, they started uniting other planets. When you look at Earth leading into Starfleet, there were no more. They didn't value the type of things that caused the wars. They didn't value money. Money was useless in that society. They put all their energy for the betterment of mankind, all the inventions and everything else. Classes were gone pretty much, and mankind was living its best, living up to its fullest potential, and that's what led them to create things like Starfleet. So now there's conflict as far as like outside of Earth and Starfleet, things like that. You have the Klingons, things like that, but as far as that, there's no one starves anymore with the invention of replicators and things like that. People aren't forced to live in squalor anymore because the entire society has been remained and everybody's at the same level. Everybody has better opportunities because of that. What the war did is it eliminated the class to the point where you had people at the bottom. Everybody was at the top now. So I would have to consider Star Trek in general as a post-apocalyptic utopia, because it took the post-apocalyptic event for them to have to recognize that utopia. So that's my opinion. That's how I look at it, though.
Let's see. Aaron also says Divergent. Yeah, I never got too much into Divergent, but I would agree it's dystopian. And Aaron also says The Boy. Yeah, I think I could see the argument for The Boys. Yeah.
This
I think
season,
I see the argument. Yeah.
It's as nasty and as gross as it's always been. I just don't think the season's very good. I'm slowly catching up, and I'm just not out of all of the seasons. I think this is the weakest season. I'm just not feeling the same energy as I was in the previous ones, Engine V, but but then again, like I said, The Boys is one of those things I sit myself in front of. I never really was a big fan of the comics or anything else like that. It just, but I watched it, first couple of seasons, all right. But like I said, I'm not one of those like fanatical people who just like, it's on the top of my list, but I do watch it because it's part of the conversation. Definitely part of the conversation I have in a store that sells it, but just I'm not too big on this season. I don't know is everybody else having a good time with it? All right.
Yeah. See where it's going.
Not the worst thing in The Boys. That's the thing. Watch this fucking show. It's and that was one of the things that's always kind of like turned me off about it, because it was that tone. It was just like, all right, let's turn this in. Okay,
What else?
so I'm not alone. It just doesn't seem like it's up to par with what's come before.
Yeah, you definitely have
I
sense.
don't
There's
even know if you watch it. Do you watch it?
Yeah, I do. I definitely have sense this season has been a bit more polarizing in terms of its reception, and yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's like I think it's like we'll see where it kind of lands, but yeah, we'll see. So far it hasn't started, I think, as strong as the first three did.
I would have to agree with this. That's the word I was looking for because it's overlaid on a society that, other than that, is pretty normal. It's pretty normal. It's they are the part of it that is the extreme part of it, and it's a satire what they do, and it's definitely fucking satire. I would have to say satire. I'd have to agree with that. What do you think?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, it's definitely satire. It's definitely superhero satire. But I think, and see that's the thing is I think a lot of satire or a lot. I think a lot of dystopian stuff tends to be satirical. It really is. I mean, like Demolition Man is a really good example.
Once you add comedy on it, though, a lot of people take it out of that argument, or they take it out of that classification. They just take it once you start getting laughs, because dystopia is usually attached to depression or oppression or
Yeah.
depressed society. And when you're laughing and giggling and shit, it's just people are like, hey, even if if it's a dystopic backdrop, it's like people are like, oh, that was funny. How can you, it takes the mood is being broken in certain movies, even though technically they can be.
I think I've seen a few people in the chat also mention Total Recall. I definitely could get behind Total Recall as a dystopian.
Now, what would be the difference between just outright futuristic and dystopia? Because I don't see any depressed or oppression, and I see though that you have the enemies doing their thing. We can remember for you wholesale, but the book never it describes it as modern day or futuristic society that's progressed naturally into what we have. There's nothing that there was no societal turning event in Total Recall that makes it a dystopian movie. The only person really going through shit is him, and everybody else is just living their normal lives. But I never got that over. But hey, like I said, that's the beauty of these conversations. It could be, I could be 100% wrong. I just never. When I think of Total Recall, I just think of futuristic.
Well, because I think also like the politics on Mars tend to, is what a lot of people are getting at, like the society that's established on Mars. Because it is, it's a bit of a like a classist sort of a hierarchy they've established, and there is a revolution that's surface on Mars. And by the way, also we talk about sci-fi as it applies to Total Recall, the way they go about terraforming the planet at the end there, it's like, yeah, that's not how that works.
And that's not how the human body works too, by the way.
Well,
guys.
like if your eyes are bugging out like this,
blind, your eardrums are blown, your lungs have been collapsed, the atmosphere pressure.
Just because the air suddenly became breathable doesn't mean that's going to fix that.
Not in the time they needed to live. And like I said, everything, their brains would have been soup. It would have been just entire. I mean, there's a documentary that shows you what happens to you if you were to take off your spacesuit on Mars, or not just being on Mars, but being on Mars while it's being terraformed and that pressure. Just think of those guys in that submarine, that Titanic submarine. Yeah, that's pretty much you, and you're not reversing that. So, Minority Report is definitely one. Another Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick and George Orwell, the Lords of Dystopia.
Yeah. Well, like what else has he done that falls under the dystopian?
Philip K. Dick, Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner, Total Recall, debatably, but arguably. This is really like.
Well, he's got three. He's got three right there. He's got Minority Report.
Yeah.
That's Philip K. Dick. He's got Blade Runner, and he's got Total Recall. What else does he have? He's got a couple other ones because that was his thing, though. That was his theme. So pretty much everything he does was going to fall under that banner because that's what his that's what he did. It's like Stephen King writes horror. That's what Philip K. Dick was. His primary genre was dystopian, which is. He died too soon, by the way, 53 years
ago. Yeah. I'm gonna look up on Wikipedia real quick, like list of dystopian movies or dystopian fiction, like see if any other big examples we're missing.
Gattaca is one. Minority Report. Minority Report's all it's futuristic, but there's a depression thing, and it's basically the police and then basically future crimes and all that
Oh
shit.
God, this list is interesting. They have like lists of dystopian films on Wikipedia. It actually lists Tim Burton's Batman on there, which like I suppose you could say like Gotham City within the context of the DC universe. It's like a dystopian
Yeah,
environment.
it has dystopian features. Yeah, I could loosely go along with that. Yeah.
It also lists Battlefield Earth.
Which
I
is
guess
true. It's just an awful movie. But,
it's just it's a hilariously awful movie if you haven't seen it. I was like, I bet Willie would say no to a watch party on that, but man, it's like that's.
I saw that in the movies. And listen, I just missed the whole Dianetics, the Hell Ron Herbert thing, and all that. It's John Travolta. He's got a string of movies that I've liked, and this wasn't one of them. It was an awful movie.
It's so bad, but it's so hilarious. Him as the main like alien bad guy. He is so over the top in it, and Here's how the human like revolting because aliens have conquered the world and in Battlefield Earth, and they've been mining our resources for like 1,000 years at this point. So mankind's kind of definitely they've heard that. So we're kind of hanging by a thread. So this one human he's leading this revolt, and what they do, they're going to organize this revolt. They go to Fort Knox, and they find all these. They go to they go to Fort Knox because they're getting gold out of there because their humans are being used to harvest the gold for the aliens. So they're trying to trick them with that, but also they organize this revolt by saying, okay, now we're in Fort Knox, so we're going to use this flight simulator to teach these guys how to fly these 1,000-year-old planes that are fully fueled and still fully functional 1,000 years later. Like, no, it doesn't work that way.
All right, so we're going to wrap this up, but it's with some of the ones that I highlighted. Clockwork Orange, definitely. Westworld, definitely.
A couple here. Elysium Creed. Yeah, I think these are all perfect examples. Yeah.
Scary Movie is not dystopian.
It's dystopian in its effect on my mental
health.
Island.
Yeah, The Island was dystopian. That was with Scarlett Johansson.
Chappie. I'm just reading off some examples here on the Wikipedia list here. Chappie. I think I can see Chappie. Dark City. It says. What else we got here? Yeah, this Demolition Man, just like I mentioned. Dread, Elysium. What else we got here? Equilibrium, Escape from L.A. Yeah, definitely Escape from L.A.
And New York, yeah, definitely.
Let's see what else. Gattaca, Ghost in the Shell. Those are good examples. Yeah, The Hunger Games, whole franchise. I Am Legend. I Am Legend. I think that's more post-apocalyptic.
I Am Legend is post-apocalyptic. Yeah, it's post-apocalyptic. But see, there you go. There you go. It's you could literally make a court case for one way or the other with just about any of these movies. Now, for me, the Sci-Fi Center definition of dystopia is a society that has resulted from the gradual decay, a non-event decay, like gradual, like Big Brother becoming prevalent you could say World War II was the catalyst, but that was a catalyst in George Orwell's mind, not in his book.
Well, I would also add to that, like the one big delineator is between dystopia and a post-apocalyptic. Dystopian is we still have a society.
Yeah, you're just all living under it. You're not the last one riding around on your horse looking for gas. So, all right, guys, I'm hungry, and I tried not to be. Okay, now we're getting crazy. No, the Warriors that's more contemporary.
Yeah. That's just like modern, like well, in the 70s, but like modern day kind of gang war sort of thing.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us for this conversation. I think we had an interesting conversation. A little, throw a little different things out there and just basically talking about the headlines. We did talk about a little bit of that, but for the most part, this was a subject. We were doing this a lot before, but then we had a lot of news breaking on a daily basis, and then but now I'll try to get back to doing at least half of our weekly shows topics until we run out of topics. That's in the topics.
Well, and Aaron sent it, and Aaron, if you could resend that, please. She came up with like a whole list of like, oh, you could do like here's like 15 genres. It could be like a the theme for a single stream. So it's like that'll be a good basis to sort of build those out from.
All right, guys, please like and subscribe. Grow our little community. That's it. That's all I got.
Yes, and by the way, one last thing that's on this list: the subject of our next Saturday watch party, They Live, included among dystopian movies. I think I can get behind that too.
Yeah, I can say about that.
Mm.
More alien invasion, but it's caused a dystopic or a result. So, all right, guys, see you tomorrow night.
Later, guys.